I started composing in a very dramatic way. I was an old child prodigy, which meant I started playing the piano when I was 12, but by 17 I was playing recitals and with orchestras. And I went to the University of California as a pianist. I was very excited about being a concert pianist. And between my junior and senior year, I went to the Aspen Music Festival and studied with a very famous pianist. Now, he turned out to be so mean to me and yelled at me. He was from New York and I was from California, maybe just a coastal difference. He made me feel so less than that I thought, what else can I do? The joy in playing the piano is over, and I'm here for 6 weeks in Aspen. I thought to myself, I can either sing or compose. So in that 6 weeks, I wrote my first piano piece, and a friend who was in the composer's seminar there, which was led by Darius Milhaud, a famous French composer, he said, play it for Darius Milhaud. So I went to the music seminar, played it, and Darius Milhaud said, my boy, you are a composer. So I went back to my senior year at college, played it for the professor who let me into the graduate composition seminar, and that was the beginning. After that, I didn't want to play another scale, another trill, another octave. I was through with the piano in my mind and was really thrilled about composing. And before that, I never wrote a note. It never occurred to me. I was interested only in perfect trills, and so that's how I began. You learn to compose by imitation, and at that early age, I had played a lot of contemporary music because I had a teacher who did it, and he passed it on to me. So it was in my ear, and actually my first piece is my most dissonant piece. And this is the month of February, and on February 8th, Mark Peliquin is going to play that piece in his series called Keyed Up. So I'll get to hear it again. I haven't heard it for a long time. It is kind of magical, composing. It comes out of a deep place, and I find out something about myself I didn't know each time I write a piece. For me, often, the thing which inspires me is a text. I've said a lot of poetry to music. And if I read a poem and it makes me cry, I know I'm going to set it to music. So often I had an affair with James Joyce, his poetry, said a lot of that. And then my most well-known work has been done settings of the poetry of Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland. And I don't know, I made it just to make a very intense connection when I read something by Lewis Carroll. You could give me Lewis Carroll's shopping list and I could set it to music. So it's a kind of, often it's a connection with the author rather than the specific poem. Well, I haven't gotten modern. I do not use a computer. I still use pencil and paper process. So my process has not changed, I would say. I'm too old to change. What's the point? No one ever loved a piece because of how it was generated. Well, I think it's very important to play an instrument. And the most important instrument to play is the piano. Why? Because when you play the piano, you have a sense of many parts going at once, which is what you must do when you compose. It's no accident that all of the great composers, starting with Bach, Beethoven, Brahms, Mozart, Schumann, all played the piano. Not only that, they were virtuosos at the piano. Not only that, they were improvisers at the piano. Nowadays, improvisation is not somehow a part of composing. So that's very important, that you play something to get a sense of what it's really like to compose. Because how can you compose if you don't know the instrument you're composing for? And you can't know all instruments, but the piano gives you, I would say, the widest knowledge of how to do it than any other instrument. Well, nobody in classical ever improvises in public, seems to me. I've never heard of a composer improvising. When you think of Schoenberg and even Prokofiev, all of these, Webern, no one seems to have improvised, and often they didn't play the piano. So that's changed in the 20th century, I think for the worse. We all thought, my generation, that the history of music would always be the history of increasing dissonance, and the better it got, the more modern it got, the more dissonant it got. Well, that seems not to be true, because nowadays people go back. There's neoclassicism, neo-romanticism, which I was interested in, and there's minimalism, which certainly does not go into dissonance. So it's changed, and that history of music has turned out not to be true. I've had a lot of experience writing for orchestra, and I always say when you write for orchestra, it's like getting into a lion's cage. You don't want to tame the lion, you want to get out alive. Perhaps what I mean by that is, having written for orchestra a number of times, I've learned how difficult it can be because there's very little rehearsal time. It's done just 2 or 3 days before the concert. You can't fix it up. So it's terrifying to hear all of those players play in real life what you imagined in your head, because it's not the same. Sometimes it sounds better. More often it sounds worse, or certainly simply different. But it's a terrifying experience because even though I play the piano and can play many parts, I still can't imagine all of the color and stuff that will happen.